New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian has laid down the gauntlet to other states, challenging them to take more international arrivals into hotel quarantine, as new figures show Victoria and Queensland lagging behind on bringing Australians home. According to analysis of weekly arrival caps by the 9 newspapers, New South Wales can take 37 arrivals per 100,000 residents and West Australia can take 38. But Victoria's cap sits at just 13 people per 100,000 and Queensland's at fewer than 10. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by my Tuesday panel from Rockhampton in Queensland, Assistant Minister to the Attorney General and Assistant Minister for Women and Industrial Relations, Senator Amanda Stoker, and from Cessnock in New South Wales, renegade Labor MP Joel Fitzgibbon. Senator Stoker, I'll start with you. Does your home state of Queensland have to pull its socks up and do something on hotel quarantine? There's a pretty pitiful numbers there.
They are really bad numbers, and I think it tells us a few things. First, that New South Wales has led the way in competently managing its responsibility to not only set quarantine rules for that state, but to implement the consequences of those rules in hotel quarantine. They've also demonstrated that by keeping their state borders open, they aren't wasting precious spaces for domestic travellers that can be used to help reunite Australians with loved ones and help get business and other travel back to normal. There's a lot that the other states can learn from this, but rest assured that the Commonwealth Government has been doing its part too. With the opening of Howard Springs, there's been 850 people a fortnight going in, and that bumps up to 2,000 a fortnight in May. There's plenty that can be learned from the good example set by New South Wales.
But Joel, could we say that the federal government should also be doing more, particularly when it comes to Australian citizens who find themselves stranded in India? Should we be utilising Christmas Island or other facilities to try to get those people back?
Of course we should, Rita. And if Amanda and her colleagues spent as much time focusing on and dealing with the challenges rather than, as they do, criticising state Labor governments, then we might be doing somewhat better. Look, we wouldn't be asking these questions tonight about India, about which states take the most people, if the government had got two processes right. If they'd done more on quarantine, which is absolutely a Commonwealth responsibility, and if they'd done better with the widespread rollout of vaccines. This virus is going to be with us for a long, long time, if not forever. And we need a vaccine rollout which is effective if we're going to ensure against further lockdowns, further blocks on flights, and of course more damage to government. So less time, please, picking on state Labor governments, more time doing your day job, Amanda, to you and your colleagues, getting quarantine right and getting vaccine right.
Well, dear Joel, I've got to take issue with some of that, if that's okay. The first thing is to say that it is abundantly clear from the very start of National Cabinet that quarantine rules were being set by state governments and state governments accepted responsibility for hotel quarantine. It's not acceptable for state governments to mess it up and then say, oh, that means the federal government's got to do it. When it comes to the vaccine rollout, there's almost 70,000 people a day that are being vaccinated. That is progress, and it's getting us to the point where our economy and our borders will be open and safer than just about anywhere else in the world, and that will be done among the first in the world. It's a big job, but we're making good progress on it.
Amanda, you'd have readers, viewers believe that the Commonwealth went to the premiers and said, look, you've got two choices. Jam all these people in your local hotels, or we'll build some new facilities or accommodate these people on our more isolated defence bases. And we are to believe that the Premier's chose the latter, the former. That is just a ridiculous proposition.
But New South Wales has Joel, New South Wales has shown us that you can run a competent hotel quarantine program, bring a lot of people back and do it without locking down every time there is a leak out. And hotel quarantine has been largely successful, except for the Victorian experience, but the less said about that right now, the better.